Hey everyone! If you're a fan of the show, please head over to mikeyop.com and click the subscribe button. It's the best way to support us, and it's free. That's mikeyOPP.com. Thanks!
Hi, I'm Mike Oppenheim, and you are listening to Coffin Talk, Interviews with the Living, a weekly podcast that explores how our views on death affect the way we live our life. This week, coming to us from Washington, D.C., is Mr. Juan Lee. He's a transformational speaker, author, and teacher on the powerful principle of love. Juan is going to talk about love and how he studied organized religion and finding elements that unite humanity. And I think we could all use that right now, a little unitedness. So, Juan, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, definitely. We're so excited to have you. And actually, today is Veterans Day, and I know you're heavily involved with those sort of affairs in the Air Force. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Hey, I served 9 years in the Air Force.
Well, thank you so much for your service.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, it made a difference in my life.
And yeah, we haven't had anyone talk about the military here, and I don't know if it'll come up today, but where I do like to start is if you could just tell the audience how old you are, where you grew up, and then what generation, if any, you feel you belong to.
I'm 56 years old. I'm born and raised in what we call the DMV, the Maryland, Washington, D.C. area. I was born in Virginia, and I was raised in Maryland. And other than the 9 years that I was in the Air Force, I've been here all my life. This is it. I am, generation, I don't know. I am right after the baby boomers. I was born in 65.
I think they call you Generation X.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Generation X, I was thinking.
And what I've noticed, because we interview people of all ages, is Gen Xers are the least likely to know their generation or even care about having one, which is kind of the stereotype for our generation. So I'm at the end of Gen X. Yeah, well, that's great. And I've spent a lot of time out where you're from. I went to school at Pitt, and I have a lot of friends from the area, so it's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's fall. It's coming. The leaves are changing and stuff here right now.
That's the best time of year there, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So let's start with your background in studying organized religion. You said you've been doing it for more than 30 years. Can you kind of walk us through what got you into that?
Well, I've been involved with religion all my life. I mean, I'm raised in various different denominations. And ever since I can remember, I've been involved in religion, from Baptist to Catholic to Protestant, Methodist, everything, having Protestant, all of the different sects of Christianity. And that's basically my background. I mean, it's basically that understanding of how religion works, and as a result, came to find out the things that were most important, rather than the things that were divisive between all of those different sects of religion or of Christianity. That love was the most important thing, and that was the journey that I was on, because it was, all of that experience that I had. It was, at the end of the day, it was really confusing, because there was no application that I could apply what I was hearing, other than being a part of one of those denominations or that religion that just led you to a point of being a part of an organization. And that was basically didn't give me any, I guess it wasn't any answers to this thing called life.
And actually, that's kind of where this podcast usually goes, is who gives us answers, where do we seek answers, how do we get answers? So I usually just ask guests to straight up tell me, and I'll ask you right now, what do you actually think happens when you die? What do you specifically for yourself believe is going to happen?
See, that's very interesting that's the emphasis that we focus on. And that is that's the thing that divides us, is that question right there as to what happens when you die, when you're no longer here. And for me, that's not even a question, to be honest with you. that that's right there. It almost, what it brings you into is a fear factor that you really is irrelevant, because it's not as though you can prevent it, and there's nothing you can do about it. And to concern yourself with it leaves you with this factor of being manipulated and led by this fear that there is something that you don't know about that you have to be concerned about. And what it leads you to is almost to the point of, if you were to compare death to birth, you had no recollection prior to birth, and to think that you're going to have a recollection of something post death, it leaves you, that's illogical, to the point where that's nothing that you could do before you were born. You could not, you had nothing to say about it. And you were not concerned about it prior to being born, but yet you spend the time of this experience called life being concerned about death. It seems to be to be perfectly honest with you, it seems kind of useless thought process. It really does.
Yeah.
And so what I've come to find out is that love allows us to deal with this experience called life, and it's from birth to death. And what you choose to believe before birth and post death, it's a choice. It's your belief, it's your faith, it's whatever you want that to be. But the fact of the matter is that I don't need to be divided because of how you believe before you were born and after you're dead, because we don't have anything in common at that point. Those are things that you came in here, as they say, you came in here by yourself, you're going to leave by yourself. But this experience called life, we're all in this thing together. And therein lies what we have to break down these divides so that we can maximize our potential, so that we can protect humanity and preserve it for the next generation. And that's the power of love. It's from life. It's from life. It's from birth to death. And that's all that I focus on. And I think that's something that we all have in common.
That's really well said, and I couldn't agree more. And it's interesting because, this podcast centers around a question, and what we hope to do is unravel from that question morality. And so you're talking about, to me, what is the most essential morality, which is how do we treat each other and ourselves here on Earth, with what we have and the time we have. So according to your biography, you're a transformational speaker, and I meant to ask you this earlier, but now feels like a great time. When you were speaking, answering my question is rather the better way to phrase it. When you were answering my question, I felt very motivated. I felt motivated to love. I felt motivated to think differently about religion. So what's the difference between a motivational speaker and a transformational speaker?
It's the attitudes. See, motivation, it's a spurt. It's just a moment. Transformational, it's about changing your attitudes. It really causes it really changes the direction of your life. It does more than just motivate. It transforms. It changes the direction. It's like changing. It's like a 180-degree change. It can make that big of an impact when you see something for the first time that really transforms you from the way in which you used to see something to a way now that you can. And to be honest with you, it's a clarity. It not only brings forth a change, but it's also clarity.
Wow, that's cool. So actually, in your career, what are some of the, I really want to ask what is the most, but what are some memorable transformations you've witnessed from other people or maybe even yourself?
Well, I mean, I tell you, the biggest one is the way in which we view life. Because I think a lot of the issues that we deal with in our society today has to do with the fact of how we view life. And when we're unable to see it through the lens of love, it begins to be selfish. And that's the cause that makes things divisive, because I'm having to defend myself. And when you're looking through love, there's this selflessness that we view things through, knowing that we're all in this thing together, and it's when one wins, we all win, and that's the unity that love presents and provides for us, because we need that one commonality, though. We need to know that we're all in this thing together, and when one wins, we all win. And we're not looking at it like that right now. And so perspective is everything, and it's the thing that really divides us, because we're having to protect our perspective. It's a selfish thing that we're up against.
So love is the solution, and I agree with you. But when it comes to the context of religion, and I'm even going to throw the military in with this, any sort of organization where you are a part of a group and that group has leadership, is the solution love no matter what group you're in? Or do you think we should be de-grouping, so to speak, and just be full of love?
No, see, this is what love does. See, we're in an environment that requires some type of organization. It has to be organized. And we've got to have some way of being able to lead. I mean, not lead, but somehow we've got to be able to find order. And whether it's, communism, socialism, capitalism, whatever it is, there is a system to it. And the system is what love allows us to be successful in, whatever the system is. Whatever the system that we're operating, love is the key to it. And so how do you maneuver is understanding how that particular society lives or operates. And it has nothing to do with what you can possess. It has to do with a state of mind which you have, where you can gain peace. And no matter what the circumstances are that you're involved in, if it's communism, I should be able to have peace in my mind. If it's socialism, it's capitalism, I should have peace in my mind. There's just certain things that we all have in common. We need air, we need food, we need shelter, we need clothing. We have certain things that we have in common, and whether or not I have a house on the hill or a hut in the valley, it covers all of what I need. That's what we have, and that's the society in which we live in. But I don't care if you live on the mountain or in the valley, I should have peace.
I'm curious, how you would implement a national or even universal program for this, because again, I'm on your side. I love what you're talking about, no pun intended. But I'm curious, would you start with education? Should our schools be teaching classes on how to love and how not to worry? What would you tell a 5-year-old who lives in the house that's a mansion on the hill, who's next to a 5-year-old who lives in a hut and doesn't have the best clothes or the best toy?
The thing about love is that here's the definition of love. Love is acting on behalf of another. It's acting, putting action on behalf of another, doing things on behalf of another. So here's the thing. The value of the person that's in the hut in the valley is as valuable to society as the person who's on the hilltop, okay? And when the person at the hilltop understands that the person in the valley is just as important as they are, see, then there becomes some type of, if I'm on the hilltop, I'm going to act on behalf of the person that's in the valley. And the person on the valley, surprisingly enough, can act on behalf of the person on the hilltop, because they both have value. and we both need each other. See, that's the one thing that we didn't realize, and I was hoping that we were going to gather from the pandemic, was those that were living on the mountaintop during the pandemic, they were locked in their houses. But if it wasn't for the people that were what we would call, quote unquote, valley livers, they wouldn't have got their mail delivered. They wouldn't have gotten their trash picked up. They wouldn't have gotten their packages delivered. Wouldn't have been able to get groceries. These people that we think that are less than, they became heroes to those that have never looked down and saw that they couldn't do this thing without them. And so that's the kind of mindset that we have to have, is being willing to act on behalf of another. See, that's that selflessness. That's what we need to teach, selflessness. And because there is no formula for it, it's the ability to be able to look over and see that there's a need and be willing to act on it.
Wow, that's really profound. I'm wondering how to really get that message out and heard loud and clear. The COVID example is wonderful, and I think that it's a really good starting point. What about moving the camera lens out with, instead of now the mansion versus the hut, what about the United States metaphorically being a bigger house than say a third world country that's impoverished with poor leadership and a corrupt government or something?
Well, that's just it. I mean, see, to really begin to evaluate America has to look in and evaluate itself, because America is one of the babies of the bunch as it relates to, sovereign countries. It's only 250 something years old. So but in that amount of time, it's proven itself to be, pretty significant. And so with that being said, it's come a degree of arrogance. I mean, we talk about problems, first world problems. It's a mindset. They were like, okay, now we've superseded the mindset of being able to be compared to being up on this hill. So yeah, to a degree, we have to understand that, we have to give. And that's a mindset that we don't have right now. We have a mindset to hoard. We have to be willing to say, okay, COVID is a prime example. We get the vaccination for it, and yet other nations, third world nations, don't have the access nor the capacity to do what we did in such a rapid time frame. We're fighting about not taking the shot, and they can't even get the shot. That's how privileged we are.
I love it. I have never thought about it from that side. That's crazy. I really appreciate you saying it that way. It's funny because we avoid politics on the show, but I felt comfortable asking you what I would consider to be somewhat, if not extremely political questions, because your message is love, and that's honestly the only solution I see for anything, but most of all, political differences. So, and you're answering great, and I'm appreciating all your answers. Just to move it back to more of your career and your work, what are some of the concrete steps you've taken in your life, either personally or in your transformational speeches and work and your authorship and your books?
Well, it's basically around about attitudes. Getting the attitudes and then applying them to a formula that really works, that comes out every time, getting the results that you're looking for. But it all comes down to this selflessness. You've got to do the work. You cannot, there's no formula that you can say, okay, love. And see, and that's been the big problem with love, is that nobody's explained it, and we've been able to give it our own definition and apply it to whenever it suits us. Okay? Love. It's the most rewarding and gratifying mindset, because what you get from it is peace. It's a constant peace is that you get from it. But to get there, you got to work. And we want to take shortcuts because we think it's a feeling and wonder why we're in the situation that we're in, assuming that we're using our own definition as to what love is, and it's really not true. How we see love demonstrated is so far from the truth. It's so far from what really it's intended for. And very few people even recognize what it is. And so very interesting, because in your podcast, you're talking about, it's called Coffin Talk. The very essence of being able to live a successful life is understanding death. If you don't understand that death has a purpose, you will miss out on this experience called life, because life is all about an investment that death seals into forever, into eternity. You've got to be able to understand that. And we're not taught that. We try to avoid death at every turn. But the fact of the matter is when you know that life is only temporary and that life is an investment, that means that you have a time to leave an impression on this thing called humanity. And that gives you the motivation to develop yourself, to be able to learn about yourself, give yourself the opportunity to be able to invest your very best into this, because it's going to be here longer than you will. That investment into humanity is what we're after. Wow.
I'm a huge fan of you and your work now, and the way you phrase things and your eloquence. So thank you. It's not that I'm out of questions so much as I feel like you have such good advice for people that the only thing I'm really missing is the connection to organized religion. So I'm curious what you would see developing here, because you explain the necessary mechanistics of organization, whether it's religion or politics or governments. But where do you see this all headed if people continue to have religious beliefs that don't preach selflessness, as you say, and love?
Well, I mean, religion's been around for hundreds of years, thousands of years. Okay. And so for the purpose of what they are doing, it has a place, but the real root that we're missing is the application of love and the ability to understand why love is important. Love connects us all around the world. It connects us. It's the one thing that allows us to, without any type of hidden agenda, it connects us. But see, here's the point, that we all have to make the choice to connect, to apply it. And that's where we fall short. Not only that we haven't learned it, but the fact is when it comes down to it, we have to choose it. And nobody can prevent us from choosing it. It's a 100% guaranteed success when we apply it. But we've got to go through and understand that there's work that causes us to be able to apply it. It's just not going to happen. We have all of these walls up and divisions that are dividing us, that are preventing us from being able to recognize that we need one another. It's not an option. There's not like a Asian human. You can call yourself whatever you want. You can preface it with anything that you want to, but at the end, we're human in this thing together. And it's amazing. And this is so much that, I was in the military during the Cold War, during the heart of the Cold War. And we were trying not to annihilate each other, to just finish the world. We had the capacity to annihilate the world. And guess what? Two sides, they had enough nuclear weapons to annihilate the world, could just blown up the whole world. And they knew enough not to do it, because it was the fact was like, is it possible that one of us could win this thing? And they came to the realization that, probably not.
It's crazy, because I grew up in the 80s, and I remember ducking under my desk for nuclear war drills, and when I tell anyone like slightly younger than me about it, they just don't even understand. And so it's really, really cool to hear your take on that and applying it to love and everything, because that is full circle what I was trying to get from you at the beginning, which is you have this profound experience from the military, and you have profound experience with organized religion, and especially the sects of Christianity. And so you come from these organizations that receive a lot of attention, both positive and negative, but you're a loving man, and you have produced change in yourself, and you're producing it for transformation for others. So it's really beautiful. I'm definitely going to be thinking about a lot of the things you said today, but I think the one I'm going to think the most about is why the Cold War didn't end and how that has to do with love and mutual respect. Because I was taught it was from mutual fear, mutually assured destruction. But I think the way you said it, it makes more sense. Well, Juan, I always like to give my guests the last question of the day. So you have the floor, and you can leave our audience with whatever you'd like, please.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. All this takes is one person at a time. All I'm wanting to do is to facilitate the opportunity to express and to share love in a new. It's about reimagining love, to understand the power of love. So it only takes one person to choose to love. And if one person chooses to love, then it can transfer to another person choosing to love. All it takes is one at a time. So I'm just asking that we all just consider choosing to love rather, than allowing whatever the variables are that are around us to divide us. Let's look to unite. Let's look to want to serve and to protect and to preserve humanity with love.
Well, that was profound and beautiful, Mr. Juan Lee. And again, for our audience, you can find Juan Lee, his information in our bio, Juan Lee, the author. And if you're a fan of the show, we'd love it if you would subscribe and maybe share it with a friend. You have been listening to Coffin Talk, Interviews with the Living. My name is Mike Oppenheim, and we will see you soon. When I hear this song and I'm walking alone when I walk into you, and I see that you see me, and I see you hear this tune, and I feel that you're near me.